Hello, everybody, and welcome to the first of my lectures for 2559 and 2559A. What we're going to be concentrating on over the next 20 minutes or so is the reflective practice and the reflective assessment that you guys are going to need to do. So we're going to really focus on getting it right. You should have been or looked at reflection previously and had a number of modules perhaps where you've had reflective exercises and assessments to do. But what I really want to do is to give you an insight into a number of different ways to do this, so that you can do it to the best of your ability. And certainly when it comes to the final year project next year, there's a lot of reflection in that. So you'll need to really think about how you process this information, how you process the experiences that you are undertaking at the moment, and what you learn from them. So a quick lecture overview. We're going to look at what reflection is and what it's all about, and then lastly we're going to look at how to do it. But what I wanted to start off with is objectives, because if we don't have a detailed objective of where we need to go, we don't know how we can get there. So there's an analogy of using this a little bit like a map. If you want to get to London from Swansea, we know we have to get on certain roads or get on certain trains and so on. So there is a defined process that we need to go through. And setting these objectives, which you will have done, your milestones as part of your first assessments, as part of the first formative assessment, they should be smart. And I know a number of the students that I've seen and spoken to have fallen down on a few areas here. So just to make you 100% clear on what SMART objectives are, they have to be specific, measurable, achievable, realistic or relevant, and time bound. So you need to ask yourself the question, do the objectives that I've set myself meet these particular criteria? What I've done is given an example here. So by the end of this lecture, okay, that's the measurable bit, I will have provided information to, okay, so that's the specific elements. All of the students, again, measured, on strategies for completing the proposal, the assessment, and for starting your reflective assignments. So again, specific. I will have been successful, so again, a measured statement, if all the relevant information, again, the achievable part, is passed on or before the 10 a.m. on the 1st of November. So we've actually put a relevant time frame in there as well. Okay, something else you need to think about when you're setting these objectives is it achievable or realistic? And there's a number of ways to do this. So I've got no more than 30 slides for 40 minutes of content. This has been achievable in the past. So you can actually start to use past experiences when you are setting these objectives and milestones. There's another example, more of a business-based one. So grow monthly users of company XYZ's mobile app to 12,000 users, which is a 10% increase by Q1 of 2020. This will be accomplished by optimizing our app store listing and by creating targeted social media advertisements to begin running in November 2019. So I think what you need to do is look at an example like this once you've written it, and then go back to what we were looking at in the previous slide and really pick out the elements of SMART as a sanity check that the objectives that you've put in place are going to work along these timelines and work along these objectives. Look at the key marking criteria that Karina's put in the handbook. Okay, it's really important. So there's various different elements that you'll need to look at with the assessment. So it's not just all about the reflection. It's about your analysis. It's about understanding the knowledge. It's about how you've researched issues and how you've researched the potential solutions to these problems that you've looked at. What have you understood? Okay, how creative you've been. So there's a number of different criteria that you need to look at. The reflection, it's an individual report, as you know. It's an opportunity for you to look back on the experiences of this semester and consider the progress that you've made to date. Okay, so it's about looking at where you started from, looking at what your milestones and objectives might have been, and how these have changed over the time that you've been looking at these business ideas. Consider the successes and mistakes that you've made so far. Okay, so that's important. It's not just reflecting on the good areas, but also reflecting on the bad parts as well. And we tend to learn a lot more from negative experiences than we do from positive experiences. So that's the basis really for reflective analysis, looking at and identifying those critical incidents, as we call them, look at what we've learned from them and what we would do differently in the second semester. The reflection is also be expected that you consider how and why others within your group. So if you're working in a group, you obviously have consultants working with you as well. What the engagement has been as a group in driving this business forward. So there's a nice little quote there. You look at where you're going and where you are, and it never makes sense. But when you look back at where you've been, a pattern begins to emerge. Okay, and that is basically what reflection is. It's looking at the journey, looking at where you want to go, and then looking back to see what we've learned from those experiences. And when we think about reflection, I've just got two pictures up there of what we normally think about. If we reflect on something, a lot of the time we reflect on sacrifices that have been made, on momentous events that have occurred within our lifestyle and our lifetimes. But also, what we need to do is think about reflecting on the smaller incidents that occur within our scope of influence. So Schoen in 1987 came up with a good definition of reflective practice, and he said that it's a mode that links thought and action with reflection. Okay, so it is about thinking about what's happened to us and what we would do differently in the future. It involves critically analysing one's actions with a goal of improving one's professional practice. Okay, so there's a bit about honesty in there. What's gone wrong, what we've done right, what our actions have been, and how we are actually going to improve in the future. And that's the Kotkamp definition. Schoen in 1987 went a bit further and said it's a dialogue of thinking and doing through which I become more skillful. Okay. So there's a number of different reflective models out there that you will come across. Driscoll's one, Borton is another, Gibbs is probably the most widely used, and it's a favourite of mine personally because it actually gives you a step-by-step cycle of what you need to look at when you're analysing a critical incident. Okay, so Gibbs's model here, as we can see, has 6 different stages. So we look at what happened. We then look at our feelings. Okay, and it's important that we analyse this from our own personal perspective. Okay, what happened to you? How did things make you feel? We then move on to the evaluation, and we look at whether or not the experience that we're analysing was good or bad. Okay, and what was good or bad about it? We analyse it. Why is it like that? Is there an underlying reason for us having this good or bad experience? And then we look at the conclusion. So what else could you have done in that situation to have changed it, to either make it better or to turn something from a negative into a positive experience. And then lastly, we get the action plan, which is really looking at what you would do next. So what we've learned from the experience and what we would do differently in future. And as we can see, it's a cyclical model. So that then goes back around full circle into looking at that from a descriptive perspective. Okay, so Kolb in 1984, which was a precursor to Gibbs's 1988 model, came up with a really simple model of how we actually learn. Okay, so he started off with concrete experience. Again, what happened, the observations and the reflections. So that includes the feelings, what I experienced, what he called abstract conceptualization, which is looking at why this happened, what actually caused these events to occur. And then lastly, active experimentation. So Kolb realized that once we have an experience, we will experiment in different ways to either recreate that experience and the way that we approached it, or to change something. Okay, and this forms the basis of how we learn, and that is why reflection and reflective analysis is so important. So we can really see from these two models that one does lead into the other. Okay, Driscoll's model of the three whys, why, or the three whats, I should say. What is it that I'm looking at? What does this mean to me? And what am I going to do next? Feeds into to what we're looking at with Kolb and Gibbs. So, the experience, the reflection, conceptualization, and active experiment. The Gibbs model just expands that out a little bit more to really get you to focus on feelings and evaluation and your conclusion and action plan, either side of the analysis phase. And it really is thinking about things. So if we're looking at Kolb, it's about the learning elements, what we've actually learned from the experience, and Gibbs really looks at how we develop that learning moving forward. So I've mentioned quite a bit about critical incidents and what they are, okay, and critical incidents sounds a little bit melodramatic. We think about things such as police incidents on the road and things like that, and critical is quite a harsh term. But what critical incidents, as Wood said in 1983, characteristically unplanned, unanticipated, and uncontrolled. Okay, so they're flashpoints that illuminate everything. Okay, so it's things that we think back on and we think, yeah, that was something that was significant in this experience over the last semester. Denscombe in 2007 said that they are highly charged moments and episodes that have enormous consequence for personal change and development. Okay, so the bit I want to focus on with that is consequences for personal change and development. So these can either be, as we've said, taking something that is positive and making it better or trying to replicate it, or taking something that's negative and working on a way to change that from a negative experience to a positive experience. So there'll be a number of different critical incidents that will have occurred over the time that you're working on this module, and what you really need to do is think objectively to identify what those might be. Your personal skills, are important in this as well. Okay, so evaluating skills is all part of that reflective practice. Experiential learning, so understanding from actually doing something what we have and what we have actually experienced. Reflection through learning. The models that I've just shown you focus you on how you can actually learn from those experiences. Okay, and the project that you or the business that you're currently working on gives you the opportunity to learn and develop those range of skills. This is a typical skills matrix. Okay, you can pick these up as a template from Google, and there's a number of different ones out there, but this is one of the most simplest, okay, or the most simple, I should say. So we've got two elements here, okay, that we want to try and focus on and reflect on. So the teamwork and problem solving, and we look at whether or not our competence in these areas are weak, average, or strong, and we can do this on perhaps a weekly basis, so that we can see development moving forward. There's a number of ways, as I said, that you can do it, a number of templates that you can use, but using this simple matrix is probably one of the easiest ways of doing that. So the reflection assignment, okay, what you need to do. Critically reflect on key aspects of your project using the Gibbs or another model, whichever you feel most comfortable with. Okay, outline what you have learned and why and how you have developed that. Okay, so what skills you've developed, what you would do differently next time. Okay, what shortfalls have you found within your levels of competence, and use theory to support the reflection. So management theory, project management theories, motivational theories. All these can be used, and again, if you're using one of these models, it should be cited. Okay, so we've got an example here. Okay, I'm not going to read through all of this, but I just want to highlight some areas of where this would meet the reflective competences that we've been talking about. Okay, so we've got the first bit there, which is the description. So the what happened element of the Gibbs framework. Okay. Then we've got the feelings and emotions. And the sentence there, this made me feel stressed and anxious that I wasn't going to produce good enough piece of work. I found myself structuring my time in, etc., etc., etc. So being honest, okay, about that experience. The theory and the discussion. Okay, so we've brought Parkinson's law, 1955, into this. Okay, and what we're doing is trying to map on these theories onto our own personal experiences. And then finally, the learning and future development elements. Okay, so looking at the alternative approach that you may take in the next term or in the next year, and how you are going to benefit from that learning experience. There's a number of different assignment structures that you can potentially look at. Okay, but we're looking at what the reflection is and what you're going to discuss, okay, as part of the introduction. Also, what I'd like to see in there as well is what model you are using and why you are using that model in particular. Okay, and that's very personal to yourselves. The main part, identifying those critical incidents and then mapping them onto to one of the reflective models. And then your conclusion. So draw the discussion together, looking at an overall reflection of the module as a whole, and what you've learned from the process. It's important, okay, that we critically analyse the incidents in the reflection. And that it's not all descriptive. One of the biggest mistakes that people make with reflection is that they describe, but they don't analyze. Okay, so evaluate your actions. Look at a comparison of your choices to alternative approaches when you're looking at the conclusion and the action plan. Which one do you believe will be better and why? Look at the motivations, okay, that have driven your action plan. Look at the context of what you're saying and map it onto a particular management theory. Okay, and that's part of the literature and the analysis of and reference to the literature that you can put into this. And then conceptualize how your judgment in the future might be affected by this experience. So, the old analogy of being frightened of getting back on a horse if you've fallen off. Think about things like that. If something you've had is a bad experience, how is that going to affect you and your thought patterns if you come up against that experience again? Okay, so it's all about the depth of reflection. It's about the evidence of engagement with those critical areas, and these have been taken from, again, as we've said, the rubric, the marking rubric in the handbook, the quality of the presentation, the evidence of the skills and practice that you've demonstrated as well. So, what does all this mean? Nice little quote from Einstein there. Okay, if I had an hour to solve a problem and my life depended on the solution, I'd spend 55 minutes determining the proper question to ask. For once I know the proper question, I could solve the problem in less than 5 minutes. So we need to be able to identify what questions we need to ask when we're analysing a problem. Okay, so that is all about being honest and thinking about what an experience means for you individually, okay, and where the gaps are in your competencies. That leads on really to the 5 whys. Okay, ask yourself the questions, the 5 whys. Think back on your critical incident. Okay, remember how it made you feel. Evaluate it. Was it a good or bad thing? And then ask yourself why. Okay, why is it good? Why was it bad? Why is this the case? Okay, and then ask again and again and again. Keep asking yourself why. Why did it happen? Why did I feel that way? Why did I believe and behave in that way? Why did I take that course of action? And with everything, we tend to, if we make a mistake, a lot of the time we tend to make that mistake again and again before it sinks in. So you can ask yourself the question, why do I keep doing that? Remember, it's all about you. Okay, reflection is very, very personal. It is all about your feelings, your motivations, your particular learning pattern. Finally, I just want to follow up with what as another precursive question. So once you've analysed why, you need to ask the question what. So what skills did you have at the beginning? What have I learned? What do I need to learn? What would make this better? And so on and so on. Okay, reflection isn't difficult. It's just making sure that that you have the right framework in place and that you're analysing the right things. That you aren't being too descriptive. That you are thinking about a particular incident, you're analysing why it happened, and you're thinking about what you could do differently in future. Remember that where the good marks will come from this is where you can look at specific management theories or motivational theories, and you can link that back to your your learning and your understanding. Okay, thanks very much. Any questions? As always, I will be around for the my office hours, and these are on Mondays and Thursdays.